Hi everybody and welcome to the Mental Toughness and Body Show. My name is Rob Evans and I'm your weight loss coach, health strategist and internationally published author, helping take your business, your life, your body, your health from where you are right now to where it is that you want to be. And today I want to talk to you about the learnings that the learnings that come out of the Tour de France. So by way of background, my dad was a professional cyclist and he's no longer with us, but he always loved the Tour de France. And I'm talking about the Tour de France today because the day of recording this, there's one day to go in the Tour de France, but the last day of the Tour de France is like a parade coming in because nobody attacks the yellow jersey. That's the leader for those that don't know about cycling. And it's really just a case of the top three finishers really just need to finish the race, and there'll be no change in the standings. And they do that out of a sign of respect that the previous in this year, 20 stages, 20 days over 3,000 kilometres, they've had plenty of chances to attack each other, and this is a day where they don't do that. Sure, it comes down to the final sprint in the end on the Champs-Élysées, but they don't attack the three place getters. So this year's race was very different because of COVID, and they're racing it through a country where they're getting over 10,000 infections a day, which is really interesting. And you see plenty of people on the side of the road that do have masks, but then last night I was seeing a bunch that certainly didn't have masks, and they're really, really close to the riders. So it's no wonder that the virus is spreading so much. But I wanted to talk about four particular things that I've noticed that are coming out of this year's Tour de France. And the first one is that it's not over till it's over. So going into last night, we had the time trial. And so the yellow jersey, I might get the time slightly wrong here. So the person that was in first place going into the time trial, so a time trial is where you're racing against each other, but against the clock. So you're not racing in a pack. You just go by yourself. You're 2 minutes apart from the person in front of you, person behind you, and you just got to go as fast as you can. Over 36 kilometres in this stage yesterday, and it has a really very, very steep uphill finish, really, really tough stage. And so going into it, the leader, Roglic, he was about, I think, 49 seconds in front of the second place person, who was a further, I think maybe a minute in front of the third place. And then Richie Porte, the Australian, he was 100 seconds behind being on the podium going into the race. Now, Roglic, he looked very strong the whole tour. He's had the yellow jersey for so many stages of it, thoroughly deserved. Looked like by far the strongest rider throughout. The guy that was in second place, only 21 years old and having the tour of his life, young life, and was just doing super, super well. And he said before the race, he says, I'm either going to win this thing or I'm going to, just completely flop out and burn up. Now, what ended up happening was one of the most exciting time trials that I've ever seen, and the commentators were saying the 30-year history of the SBS cycling that they cover it here in Australia, the most exciting time trial that they've ever seen as well. What ended up happening was Roglic, he dropped down to second place. The guy, Pogacar, I think his name is, he had the time trial of his life. He absolutely smashed it. He won the fastest time by, I think, over a minute or so, and ended up taking first place. And Richie Porte, the Australian, he picked up more than 100 seconds. He came either second or third, I think. He came in the overall time trial event and just absolutely crushed it. It was so amazing to watch. I didn't watch it live because it was at like 2 a.m. in the morning, our time here. But it was absolutely amazing. Now, every single one of those riders and others in the race have a story. Richie Porte, I'll give you the Australian side of it, he's had such a horrific past in the Tour, and his previous best ever is a 5th place position, and that was when he was riding for Team Sky, and he was riding for other riders, and he was riding at a time when he could have actually won stages, but he had to hold back because he was riding for his team. People like Chris Froome, not sure whether he was in the team with Bradley Wiggins when he won, but he certainly rode for a couple of years with Chris Froome and helped him win the race. He was really, really fundamental. So he basically sacrifices himself for other team members. Now, it got to the stage where he thought he's never going to be able to win racing for a team like Sky because they had some, I guess, better pedigreed riders coming in. So he decided to leave that team and go out on his own. And for, I think, the last few years on stage 9, he crashed out of the race and like broke bones and stuff, and he had to leave the race. Very, very unfortunate. And this year, he'd been flying under the radar a little bit. He'd been really, really consistent, but going into 100 seconds behind, I'm thinking, oh man, he's had such bad luck. I hope it doesn't happen, but is the other guy just going to be so much better in the mountains than him? Is he going to crash out, puncture or something, and it all go wrong? But no, it all went right. So what's the message there? It isn't over till it's over. It's really not. It's really not. I'm going to come back to that more a bit in a second. I did want to talk about the second point, which is about, do you pick form over historic performance? Because when you look at Team Sky, that's when they were the strongest, when they were called Team Sky. I think they're called Team Ineos now. Sky stepped away as being a sponsor. But they have absolutely dominated the Tour de France for the past, I'm going to say 5 to 6 years. And the guy that won it last year, Egan Bernal, he was in it this year, but I think he finished, or did he pull out? No, I think he pulled out. He pulled out a couple of days ago. And you think, wow, what has happened there? Now, the person that's won it most in Sky is Chris Froome. Now, they overlooked Chris Froome because they had the guy that won it last year. They put him in. Now, Chris Froome's won it more times than Egan Bernal, but they thought, oh, well, Egan Bernal's younger, we'll pick him. The other person that's also won it from Team Sky is Gerard Thomas. And they overlooked him as well because they said, okay, we'll put Gerard Thomas into another Grand Tour, which I think they're putting him in either the Giro or the Tour of Spain. I'm not sure. I think Chris Froome's going in the other one of those. And I wonder if they're thinking now, because Egan Bernal, he didn't handle it this year. He was doing well to start with, but in the last week he just dropped further and further away to the point where he said, no, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to concentrate on the World Championships. So he didn't even give the respect to the race to finish the race. Now, maybe that was a team decision. We don't know all the details of that, but that's certainly how it looks. And I wonder if that team is now thinking, wow, we've dominated this so much in the past. This year they didn't do that well at all. I wonder if they're thinking, should we have gone with the historic performance of people like Gerard Thomas and Geraint Thomas and Chris Froome, because they were hungry to get into it, but they were overlooked by the younger person because he won it the year before, and they thought, oh well, he's going to be better than them, and he's Colombian, better in the mountains, the high altitude and everything, but didn't perform this year. So I don't know, what would you have done if you were the team leader, team manager? I think if it was me, I would have gone over the historic performers. And obviously you've got to take into consideration recent performance. There's no sense in saying, well, they won it last year, but this year they've got a broken hip. Let's put them on in and just see how they go because they've won it before. Obviously they've got to be riding well, but I believe all those riders were riding really well. So they've just opted for the winner on the previous year. Whereas what's interesting there is the previous year, Geraint Thomas, I can't remember, was he in the race? He might have podium finished, I'm not sure. But Egan Bernal was the one that ended up winning it, and then they ended up riding for him. So I think he was in it. So it's interesting. It's a real conundrum, and there's a lot of politics in cycling. There really is, and amongst these big budget teams as well. I'm sure there's many discussions. Not everybody's happy with it, but at the end of the day, these cyclists are riding for an income as well, and they've got to toe the team line. But I think if I was the team manager, I would have gone with probably Chris Froome because he's back in form. What I would also take away from this tour, I mean, this is the hardest physical sporting annual event in the world. They rode 3,000 kilometres and across 21 days, sometimes it's 22 stages. It's incredible what they have to go through. And if I look at it through the eyes of Richie Porte, so much bad luck in the past. Going into the last stage, knowing that, well, there's also a little bit of a backstory here. Next year, he's going back to old Team Sky, Team Ineos, and he's going to be riding for other riders for the rest of his career. That's how he's going to see out his riding days because he's such a strong rider. And where I've seen him perform best, and it's funny, where he's performed best and he hasn't had any bad luck, it's when he's been riding for Team Sky. That's when he's been at his absolute best. Always up the front, always putting in such a huge effort, being such a huge support for Chris Froome in the past, and just brilliant. And he stepped away from that team because he knew that he's always going to be the support rider for someone else. And he had to step away from that team so that he could have a chance to try and win the tour for himself, and have a team support him to do that. Now, it's just unfortunate that when he's been in those positions, he's had such horrible bad luck, just freakish bad luck, and he's been eliminated from the race. At the peak of his career, where he's been in the best shape of his life. And so, I mean, that's so incredibly heartbreaking. It's kind of the nature of the sport as well, but you just feel so much for him and others where this has happened as well. And so this year, knowing that he had a chance of getting a foot on the podium at least once in his lifetime as a cyclist for the Tour de France, it's the pinnacle. It's like the Olympics. Well, I think for cyclists, the Tour de France is bigger than the Olympics. Because the Olympics is it's a road race, it's a one-day event, whereas the Tour de France, it's a 22, sometimes 23-day event. So that's the pinnacle for them. And so for him to know that I've got a chance today when I step on that bike of going 100 seconds or more faster than the guy in front of me, and that means that I get a foot on the podium. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to make up 3 minutes on the leader to take the yellow jersey, but I can get closer to getting my foot on that podium if I get 100 seconds. And so he's got this never give up attitude that most people would say, wow, 1 minute and 40 seconds? How can I possibly make up that when this guy he's a Colombian, he climbs like, a spider up a wall. He's like so incredibly fast. He's better at altitude than Richie, and he's currently ahead of him. And you'd think, well, there's no way that I could possibly pass him. That's one voice, but the other side is this isn't at altitude. Yes, it's a mountain finish, but it's 36 kilometers. And I'm a time trial specialist. He's not. He's good on the time trial, but I'm better. And I've got the determination. I'm hungrier than he is, and I'm just going to go for it and lay everything on the line because this is the last chance that I've got to do this. And he just didn't give up. And you can see it on his face right to the end, right to the line, fighting right to the very end. And this leads into the fourth point, and that is that mindset conquers ability. Yes, the other guy might have had greater ability in the mountains, but when it comes to mindset, let's just look at the difference here. So Lopez is the name of the guy that was in third place. Younger, many more years left to ride. Richie, last year riding for himself, hungry. Very, very hungry. So automatically, what does that tell you? Richie has a very strong, determined mindset to say, nothing's going to hold me back. I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm going to get this third place no matter what it costs me, because this is the last chance I've got. And I'm going to bury myself in this ride so that I can accomplish the ultimate dream for me. I'm going to use the pain of these last years of me not even getting to this stage because I've been knocked out due to bad circumstances and haven't been able to finish the tour. And those other times where I've had to ride for other people and be their support person, this is my chance. I'm going to do this for me. I'm sick and tired of doing it for other people. This is for me. This is my chance. No one else can stop me today from losing this or getting third place other than me. No one can do that. It's all on me. So I'm going to bury myself. I'm going to put all that pain that I've had in the past and put it into my legs, into my lungs, so that I can push myself as hard as possible to get the result that I want. And when I saw him cross the line, I was just completely blown away at the time that he did. At the time he was finished, they'd ride in reverse order, so the leaders were coming behind him. He finished less than a second than behind the current first place person for the stage win. And I think he would have ended up coming third, I think, overall for the stage win. And I don't know what the exact time was, but he's now in third place. So he will finish as long as he makes it to Paris tomorrow. It's actually tonight, finishes tomorrow morning, my time. He will finish on the podium for the Tour de France. And I think, wow, what an effort. I mean, I've had the privilege of talking to Olympic gold medalists and asking them questions and understanding what it is for them, what it is that has been the biggest impact for them. And I've asked them, is it their training? Is it their work ethic? Is it their coaching? Or is it their mindset that has helped them win the gold medal? And even some of them I've asked, like on that day, as you're, heading towards the finish line, what is it? And every single one of them have said mindset. Mindset trumps ability. It trumps the coaching, it trumps the work ethic. Not that they're not important, because they're all important, but the mindset is the most powerful thing. So guess what? If you look at all of that I just said about the Tour de France, you may have zero interest in sport and in the Tour de France and cycling. What I love about it is the way that it's captured on film is just beautiful. Through the countryside, you see the chateaus. I'm just fascinated by that type of architecture and that era and the countryside and everything. It's just really, really gorgeous. I love it. But you don't have to like the sport or cycling to take away the things that I'm talking about here. And that is, life can be tough. Events can be tough. But if you create the right mindset for yourself, anything is possible. Yeah, you mightn't have to go through that physical pain of riding 3,000 kilometres and burying your heart and soul on a mountaintop finish in the stage of the Tour de France. But effectively, if you want to get into that, like I was talking about yesterday, the top 1% health, If you want to get into that top 1% of being successful in your industry, even if it's the top 10% to be frank, then that is going to require pain. Now that pain may not be oxygen deprivation and lactic acid burn, but it's going to be the equivalent of what that means for you in your heart, your mind, your soul, how much that's going to burn. And if you don't put up with that burn, if you don't push into that burn, then you're not going to get any better. So if Richie Porte gets to halfway through the time trial and says, oh man, I'm tired, this is burning, this is hurting too much. Imagine if at the end of the race, he's being interviewed and they say, Richie, you were on target to get third place on the Tour de France, and given everything that's happened in the past, wouldn't have that been worth it? And he said, yeah, well, going into the start of it, I was really wanting to achieve the third place, but I got halfway and I was just so tired. I just wanted to have a sleep. And I thought it was going to hurt too much. So I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to cruise to the finish. I've put in a solid effort. I'm happy with, knowing that I could have got third, and I just wanted to finish and, go back home, see my family, and just move on. Like, imagine how that would sound to the world if one of the top athletes in the world had said, I was just too tired. But how often do we do that ourselves? But we don't say it like that because we don't have the media in front of us at the end of, when we do something at the end of the day. Imagine at the end of the day, if you had to face up to a press conference and all the media knew exactly all the things that you did through the day, and they said, so, Rob, we noticed you watched 2 movies today and your workout was a little bit off and you weren't eating the right food and, it looked like you weren't spending too much time with your kids and you didn't really help with homework and stuff. Tell us what was going on there. And you're like, oh, well, gee, it was like this. I mean, if we were more accountable to someone else, then we would probably step up a lot more. Now, here's the ticket. You've got to be your own accountability buddy. And you've got to push into this pain. Your pain's going to look different to my pain, but you've got to put in long hours. You've got to sacrifice things. You've got to make things hurt emotionally. Normally, if it gets deep into your emotions, you'll find that, man, this is really tough. This is hurting. But it's in that hurt that you need to harness. Because within that hurt, you'll become a greater version of yourself. You'll dig a little bit deeper. So do you think last night Richie jumped on the port, and yes, I am focusing on him because he's Australian and he's a really, really good bloke. But do you think that he jumped on the bike for the first time last night and rode that course for the first time and did his first time trial in his life? No. He's ridden thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of kilometres, maybe even a million kilometres over his lifetime. And he practices putting himself in pain. He practices the time trial. He would have ridden that course a number of times before on different reconnaissance training camps so that they could know exactly what it's going to be like, exactly what it's going to feel like, know what the time checks are so that he can compare them to or where he's ridden it once before, knowing all that information. And it's because he's done that when it comes to the real thing, you just get better and better. So you practice and you practice and you practice. So he practices putting himself in pain. Whenever I train my body, I've got a workout coming up this afternoon, and I know that it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot. But if I don't hurt myself, I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to get the results that I want to get. Does that mean you need to hurt yourself if you're working out? Well, the answer is yes, if you want to get a significant change in what it is that you're doing. If you just want to lift weights for the sake of giving yourself a bit of a mental health release and knowing that you're doing your muscles some good, then you don't have to push in as much pain as what I'm going to, but you still got to get a burn. But some people don't like the burn. Some people don't like pain. So they don't push themselves. So they stay the same. So if you want to change, push yourself into the pain. I love how you can look at any sport, any event, and you could take any athlete off the field, off the bike, whatever. Every single person has a story, and there are learnings from it. Success learnings, failure learnings. You can learn from the whole lot. So take today and see how can you improve your own sense of what you're looking to accomplish. What can you learn from the way that you're running your life right now to make yourself stronger? And remember that last point. Well, I'll read through them all. First one, it's not over until it's over. The second one was about, do you go on current form or do you go on historic results? The third one is about never giving up. Don't ever give up. Life's too short to give up. And the last one, I think, is the most important, and that is it comes down to your mindset. Your mindset is going to conquer ability. If you continuously have the strong mindset to get a better version of yourself, better outcomes, keep striving for success, then if you keep having that mindset, then you will keep getting better outcomes. You will keep getting more success. That's certainly what I noticed in my life, and it stands out when other people get to know you. They say, wow, I can see where you were and where you are now, and how do you do that? It comes from just keeping on grinding, keeping on pushing, keep striving for more and more success, because you're worth it, the work is worth it, and the rewards make it all worthwhile. See you tomorrow.